Hi everyone, John here. Welcome back to another Sapphire tutorial. This time I'm going to walk you through step by step how I created this look by combining effects inside of Sapphire Effect Builder. Time effects have been updated in Sapphire 2024 and they no longer rely on the output of the previous frame, so you get much faster and more consistent results. And they've also been included in Sapphire Builder. And I knew that time effects would be perfect to accentuate the dynamic movement of this dancer. So let's jump into the builder and see how we might be able to use time effects in conjunction with other Sapphire effects to create this look. Now I'm using Sapphire here in After Effects, but if you're using a different host with Sapphire and you're using Sapphire Builder, then all of this will be useful for you too. So let's jump into Sapphire Effect Builder. I'm going to click on Edit Effect. And obviously this is already all done. So what we're going to do is just delete everything. Just get rid of everything completely, and we're going to build this again from scratch. Just working at a low resolution here on this monitor for the recording, so it doesn't give me quite as much workspace as I'm normally used to on a 4K monitor. All right. So the first thing I want to show you is down here in the Effect menu, right down here under Time. Previously under Time there was just Flicker. But if we twirl that open, now you can see there's all of our time effects. So it's great to have access these in the Sapphire Effect Builder now. But the one we're going to start with is Time Slice. So there's a couple of ways we can add an effect into the workspace. Of course, we can click and drag it, but we can also use a recently introduced feature, which is just to hit the Tab key and type in the name of the effect, Time Slice, and hit Enter, just like that. All right, so we're not going to do very much to this. All we're going to do is just increase the slice number to 45. And Time Slice works really well with these kind of shots with lots of movement in it. If I just drag that to us, there you go, there. See how she gets stretched out like that? I love that look. So obviously I'm using certain values here because I've already created this look, but just play around with the values if you prefer something else. It's up to you. Okay, so there's Time Slice. So what I want to do now is add another time effect. And I want you to watch this carefully. With Time Slice selected, if I hit Tab, and I'm going to add Time Average. Watch what happens. I'll get a message saying that Time Average must be connected directly to the source. So if there was a limitation with time effects inside of the Effect Builder, then it's that time effects have to be connected directly to the source. What that means is that you can't put other Sapphire effects up above the time effects. And I was playing around with it, and creating this look, I realized that that's not really a problem. You can connect multiple time effects to the source and still create a great look. So I'll show you what I mean. So we can't use the quick menu. So what we have to do is search up here in the effect list. So Time Average, and I'm going to click and just drag it down and just drop it into the workspace like that. Okay, so now we can manually connect it to the source and we don't get that message. All right. Now with Time Average selected, let's turn on Preview Selected Node. You can already see the result we're getting there. Now all I want to do is just increase the brightness. I'm going to leave average over frames at 10 and just take this to 1.4 just to brighten that up. I love the streakiness. Really nice, especially there when she stops moving. So those frames catch up with her, really nice. Once again, you can increase or decrease the average over frames, it's up to you. All right, so if I click on Time Slice, because we have Preview Selected Node selected, we can see Time Slice. And same again for average, but what if we want to see both at the same time? Well, in order to combine these, we can use Sapphire Layer. So with Time Slice selected, I'm going to hit Tab and type in Layer and hit Enter. And that works because it's placing the effect after the time effect. All right, so Time Slice is in the foreground and Time Average is in the background. So I'm just going to connect that to the background like that. And we don't see anything yet. That's because mode is set to normal. Let's change that to screen. Now we can see both. So we can combine multiple time effects. Very nice. All right, let's just give ourselves a little bit of space here. Next, what I want to do is add an effect after time slice, and that effect is pixel sort. So once again, I'll select time slice, hit tab, and type in pixel sort. Double click. Right, you can start to see that effect happening there. Remember, this is only happening after the time slice effect. And what we'll do is we'll change the sort angle to the opposite direction by entering 180. Like that. And we'll decrease the threshold, 0.15. And that gives us a more visible result. Very nice. So you can see how that's pixel sorting the time sliced version of the dancer, which is really interesting. Okay, so that's the time effects. Next, let's add some stylization effects. And once again, I'm not going to be able to attach it directly to the source because I'll get that error message again. So I'm going to use Edge Detect, and I'm going to search for it up here. Edge Detect, click and drag and drop. And connect that into the source. There we go. So we're getting a result there. So what do we want to do here? Let's see. We'll bring saturation down to 0. Edge smooth to 0. You can already see that's looking really interesting, especially with her hair. That looks so good, especially when she swishes it like that. Every time I see a look like this, I think of, a-ha's Take On Me video. Let's also bring the threshold. Let's go up a bit, just 0.14, I think is my settings, just like that. There we go. What that's also doing is stopping the background from getting too much of that effect as well. We're still getting it on the light, but that's okay. Okay, next let's add halftone. So once again, searching for it up here. Click and drag. Drop that in there and connect that into the source. Like that. So now we need to make some adjustments here. First of all is dot frequency. You've got to bring that right up. And dot sharpness, take that to 2. For dot lighten, I want to drop out some of these dots around the dancer. So my settings were minus 0.055. I know that's very specific, but you can see how that's dropped out a lot of those dots around the dancer now. And I also just increased the smooth source a little bit, 0.053. And once again, you can always use your own settings. But now we're getting mostly the halftone effect on the dancer, and you've got it on the light as well, but I like it on the light. So I decided not to mask her out. I decided to keep the effect on the lights. Okay, so now we want to mix those together. So once again, we use Sapphire Layer. Quick way to do that is just to right click on the existing one and duplicate. Grab that and just drop it on Edge Detect like that. So we've got Edge Detect in the foreground. We'll put halftone in the background, and that's already on screen. So you can see how we can now see both effects. Very nice, huh? How good is that? Love building looks in Sapphire Builder. It's so much fun. All right, so now we want to see all 4 of the effects together. So how do we do that? Layer. So we'll do the same thing. We'll just duplicate and drop that one on this one. That ports it into the foreground, and we'll put that one into the background. It's already set to screen, and there we go. Now we can see all 4 effects. Very nice. Okay, so that's the main look done. Now we want to just give this a bit of a color grade. You can see it's looking a little bit milky, a little bit flat. So with layer 3 selected, what I'm going to do is hit tab, and I'm going to type in VIN, and I'm going to choose Vintage Color 3 Strip. And that adds a little bit of saturation to that. I'm actually not going to change any of the settings for this, but I will just add a bit more gamma by once again hitting tab and typing in gamma. And we'll increase the gamma to 1.3. You can see that does brighten it up, but just bear with me for a sec because we're going to offset the darks by minus 0.35. Okay, so with the addition of those two effects, now we've got a lot more contrast, a lot more saturation, and we're really focusing on the dancer. But the spotlights kind of are an afterthought in the shot. And when I first designed this look, I was thinking, should I mask the dancer out? Should I ignore the spotlights? But I decided to use Sapphire to enhance the background rather than ignore it. And the first effect I used to do that is Sapphire Lens Flare, particularly Sapphire Lens Flare Auto Track. So let's add that. So we'll select Gamma. Once again, hit Tab, type in LENS, and we'll choose Lens Flare Auto Track. Okay, now this is really interesting. Notice how we're getting this error message, and it's saying that we have the maximum number of nodes. So we're going to cancel that. I'm really glad that happened, actually. You see how it's grayed out? So what we're going to have to do, because we've got all of these layer effects in here, we don't really want to see these parameters outside of the builder in the host. So we're just going to uncheck each of those. Don't need to see any of those parameters. Like that. And if we select this one now and right click and choose enable, and now it works. Okay, so that's something to keep an eye on. If you've got too many effects in the builder, then you'll get that message and you won't be able to add any more effects. When we finish this look, we'll save it as a preset and we'll have another look at unchecking and checking parameters for the host. All right, so there's only a couple of things we want to do with lens flare. And the first is we want to have a maximum of 2 hotspots because we've got 2 spotlights. Okay, so we'll set that to 2. And it's looking a bit weird because it's thinking that we want to put a flare on the dancer because this is where the white pixels are. So we can get around this by, just going to zoom out here. What we want to do is we want to make myself some space. We want to take the track and connect that directly to the source. I'm just going to give myself a little bit more space here and clean this up a little bit. Okay, so we're going to grab the source and connect that to the track. And watch what happens. Click on that one because we've got previous selected node turn on. Okay, so now that's working. So it's only seeing the original source. It's not seeing all of the effects that we've applied. If we hadn't done that, then we would have been, as you saw, using the entire shot with all the effects applied as the track, and that's why it was affecting those white areas created by edge detect and halftone. So that works really well. So now we've got 1 flare on this blue light and we've got 1 flare on the red light. Very nice. But we will just change this. I kind of like this flare, but we'll just grab a preset by clicking load preset. And by all means, choose the look that you like. The one that I chose is one called Bright Spot. Just wait for these to load. And I'm going to type in Bright Spot. And it was this one here, Bright Spotlight version 2. I'm going to double click. And there we go. So nothing too fancy, but it just enhances those spotlights. Across the other side. And there we go. And I do have to point out with these time effects, notice how I'm jumping around the timeline here. And as I mentioned, these are previewing much better than they were before. So that's making them so much easier to use. All right, so that really has enhanced those spotlights now. I particularly like how the lens flares are adding that lens detail. It's giving this a lot of depth. And to finish off this look, what I'd like to do is use one of the new effects in Sapphire 2024, which is Sapphire Dust. Before we do that though, one thing we should do is just once again increase the max hotspots. Remember we set this to 2, but then we applied a preset and that reverted back to 1. It probably doesn't make a lot of difference with this shot because I think we only see 1 spotlight in the frame at a time. But I'm just not quite sure, so I'm going to make that 2. All right, so With that selected, hitting Tab. Now notice that I have dust at the top of the list here. And that's because I've set dust as a favorite. So this is a recent feature in Sapphire, really handy. Not only does it put it at the top of the list here, it also has it at the top of the list in this quick menu. I'm just going to double click that. If you haven't got it there, just type in dust. And that will place that below Lens Flare Auto Track. And at the moment, we've got dust over the entire shot. Let's use a preset just by clicking on Load Preset. There's a variety of presets to choose from. I'm just going to type in variation because there's only one variation currently, and it's this one, Slow Drift Down Variation. Double click, and Sapphire Dust is very fast. It looks like a particle generator, but it actually isn't. It's actually a box with a field of points in it. So because there's no particle simulation, it's very fast. Now, this is just dust drifting from the top of the frame down towards the bottom. And I thought that worked quite well because in this shot, the camera's panning from the left to the right. And I didn't really want to add any drift from side to side because I thought it might sort of clash with the camera movement. Having the dust falling directly down, I think actually works quite well without having to do any kind of tracking. Now, but I don't want it over the entire shot. I just want to have the dust visible in the bright areas of the spotlights. So what we can do is we can create a matte, and we'll just do that by connecting Lens Flare Auto Track to the matte. And already you can see that we're only seeing the dust in the brightest areas. And that's because for S dust, we have point masking set to brightness. Now, I actually want to borrow the color from the background, especially over here in the red area, because the dust is white, and I'd rather sort of borrow that red color, and the blue, of course. We can do that by setting the Use Matte 4 to occlusion, and take a close look at the dust. You can't see it at the moment, but if we change the matte type from Luma to color, it's only very subtle, and you may not even notice it on the video recording, but we're now borrowing the color from the background. And remember, the background is everything that's from the source all the way up to Lens Flare Auto Track. And once again, here's the final look. So you can see how combining time effects with different Sapphire effects inside the builder, you can really enhance a shot like this. But there's no reason to stop there. Why not go ahead now and try some different effects? Maybe change time slice. You might want to, for example, try something like Time Warp RGB. And we have to drag it down in here. And you can do that just by disconnecting time slice, and going to have to do this manually and drop that into pixel sort like that. So now we're getting Time Warp RGB, and we're adding a bit more color in there. That looks really nice, doesn't it? It's amazing how quick and easy it is to experiment in Sapphire Builder, and time effects are really taking it to that next level. I'm going to just undo that for now, and just want to show you how you can save this as a preset. Remember, previously we selected the layer nodes and we turned off the parameters for this effect just by clicking on this checkbox here. What I would generally do is, first of all, think about how maybe I could use the recently introduced parameter linking. And I did have a good think about it with this particular look, and there wasn't anything specific that I thought parameter linking might help with. Generally, with parameter linking, I like to sort of link things like color, like attributes that when I change one of the colors, it changes all of the link colors. I can quickly show you how I set that up. If, for example, we select like the halftone and come over to color 1, click on the stopwatch and choose to make this a driver, and then come down to maybe Lens Flare Auto Track because it's got some color here. Click on the stopwatch and click on the chain link icon, and then choose that driver from the select driver list. And now that's linked back to the color of the halftone. So if I change the halftone, then it will change the color of the flare as well. So it doesn't particularly make any sense in this look, but parameter linking can be really handy depending on the kind of look that you're setting up. So think about parameter linking and then just come into each of the effects and just choose which parameters you want to see in the host. So I just basically turn everything off. Maybe I'd want to see the slice number, time average, maybe the average over frames could be good to see in the host. Edge detect, do I want to see anything in the host? Maybe not. Maybe threshold. Can always come back and turn things on. And for halftone, maybe the dot frequency and the color, of course. And by turning on the color here, whatever parameter that color is linked to, I don't have to turn on that parameter for that effect, because obviously if I can see this in the host, then it will change those automatically anyway. All of the layers are off. Finish color 3 strip, maybe the amount. And the gamma can just be careful not to break that. And the gamma can be nothing. Lens flare auto track, maybe the hotspot, what could we do? The hotspot brightness, maybe the brightness. And dust, maybe the amount of dust, or the number of points. And once we've got all that set up, we could come in and we could save that as, and save that as our preset. Simple as that. And obviously we can share that with other hosts that also use Sapphire Builder. And back here in After Effects, you can see we're only seeing those parameters that we made available inside of the builder, which makes it really easy to focus on just the things you want to change directly inside the host. All right, so the last thing I want you to consider is using this on different shots. I've got a different shot here. It's also a dancer, but it's on a black background. Remember, we designed this look with a fairly dark shot. So don't go dropping this preset onto a really bright shot and expect it to look good. You'd have to make a lot of adjustments. If we come back to this composition, you can see that does update very quickly. I can jump around the timeline and I'm already getting quite an interesting look. I'd probably want to go and make a few adjustments, but it's very fast. Time effects are working exactly as you'd expect them to work. And it's really lovely look. So nice. Okay, so hopefully that's given you some ideas about how you can start to use Sapphire Builder in your own work. Download a fully functional free version of Sapphire 2024 from Boris FX, where you can learn more information about Sapphire. But for now, this is John from Boris FX. I'll see you in the next tutorial.